not a thing to be waited for. It's a thing to be achieved. Create your destiny wisely, my friend, and surrender a bit more wealth for more instruction from Zoltar.
Alright, hello everyone, hello, and welcome to my PAX recap video. It's been a good while since I've done this, since the first time I did it was 2019. Yeah, and then right after PAX shut down, along with everything else in the world, for reasons I will not specify in this video because it might get the video demonetized. But you all know what it is, so I don't even need to say it. But this was PAX's second year open since all that went down, and I did not go the first year. First year was a little shaky, I was a little hesitant, but this year I decided, sure, why not, let's go. And they had safety restrictions in place and all that for the expo hall, so I'm fairly confident everything was fine. Everything went very smoothly, in fact. This year was very quiet, and everything went very smoothly, unlike Dragon Con, apparently, which was happening around the same time. At pretty much the exact same time, actually. Dragon Con was having an absolute disaster. One of the hotels flooded. People were getting stuck in elevators. It was awful. PAX, on the other hand, nowhere near as busy as Dragon Con, and just super chill, really. Honestly, I think that's the best way to describe PAX this year, is just chill. I've been to PAX for years now, since like 2015, 2016 or so, and all the other PAXs were usually really super busy, even on Fridays and Sundays and the like. But this year, the only real busy day was Saturday. Which, mind you, you'll note that in all my footage, I started recording on Saturday, which is why a lot of the footage is very crowded. But that's as crowded as it ever really got. Saturday was the busiest day, and by the time Sunday came around, you'd think the convention was over, there were so little people. Also, for consistency's sake, some of this footage you might notice is at around 60 FPS, because I only realized by the last day of the convention that my phone had a setting that let me record at 60 FPS, so, oops. But yeah, that's the best way to describe it. PAX was very small this year, at least compared to the previous ones. There were some big booths. You had your big Elden Ring booth, you had the Turtle Pope right outside the entrance right there you could get a photo with. You had Bandai Namco with a big One Piece game booth. You had Splatoon 3 getting shown off and all that. You had a bunch of the, big computer companies showing up, right? You had your Aorus and Intel and all that. And of course, Devolver showed up with their big theater booth as well, with Gunbrella and things like that. But beyond that, oh, and Tiny Build. Tiny Build as well. They had a whole carnival thing, which, as you will have seen in the intro to this video, there's a little Zoltar in the corner behind the Tiny Build Carnival, and if you push the red button he'll give you a fortune and dispense a little ticket, at which point you could submit it to the Tiny Build's merch crew and get a free try, or quote-unquote free try, on a little claw machine that was next to the merch booth, that if you succeeded in getting one of the little plastic balls, it had a bunch of Steam codes in it, so that was fun. I'm pretty sure I started that chain because on the first day I was walking around, we saw this thing, and there was no one was paying it any mind. People would just occasionally glance at the Zoltar and walk away. But eventually, as people started fiddling with it, I walked up and I just pushed the red button and it gave me the ticket, and I started telling people about it, and by the second and third day, there was a line in front of Zoltar. So I think I might have started that. So that was fun. But beyond that, there weren't that many big booths around, There was a lot of little booths spread all over the place. Not that many in terms of, big stuff, right? Sega had a booth that had about 4 games in it. Company Heroes, which I played, Company Heroes 3. I think it has some potential. Campaign map seems a little iffy, but I'm liking it. Endless Dungeon is looking very good. I like Endless Dungeon. And then the other two were Total Warhammer and Humankind, which I already have and have played, and I already like them enough. Humankind is okay. It's not Civilization, but, it's alright. It's a decent competitor. And Total Warhammer 3, I think, is great at this point, especially with the Immortal Empires campaign. Oh yeah, Larian had a Baldur's Gate 3 booth there. Yeah, big old Baldur's Gate 3 booth. I walked up to the merch guy, and I did buy a t-shirt or two from them. But I was talking to the merch guy, and I asked him if he got a lot of questions about the release date of the game. Because, you know, this game was supposedly meant to come out like a year or two ago, but got delayed multiple times. And he said no, actually, because supposedly they have a definitive release date for like early 2023. So let's see if they live up to it this time, you know? BioWare had a little merch area, which I found really funny because it's supposed to be Mass Effect and Dragon Age merch, but there's only 4 pieces of Dragon Age merch you can get, and like 4 rows of BioWare, and like 4 rows of Mass Effect merch you could get. So clearly shows where the bias lies there, who the favorite child is, if you know what I mean. Also, I just found it absolutely hilarious that they played into the body pillow thing. You get a Tally or Garrus body pillow depending on where your preference lies, which I just thought was absolutely hilarious. There were a couple of other interesting games, such as Deceive Incorporated, which I found was pretty interesting. I think that has a lot of potential. Metalcore? Metalcore is an interesting thing. I don't think I got that many pictures of the Metalcore booth, but Metalcore... how do I explain this? So on the first day, I walked up to the Metalcore booth, and I was curious because it was a mech game where you could get out of your mech and run around as a little infantry guy. So I was like, okay, I'll try this out. Played it, got a little pin, which is like one of the emblems of one of the factions in the game. Then I realized, each day when you play it, you get a different pin of one of the different 4 factions. So I was like, well shit, now I gotta make it my goal to get all 4. And I did. And the game seems really good. It's in pre-alpha right now, but the demo we played was really good, especially for a pre-alpha. It was a fully made level, there were a good number of mechs and everything. It seemed really good for a pre-alpha. The thing that's making me a bit hesitant, though, is that afterwards, I looked up Metalcore and I found that it's an NFT game. Now, initially I was suspicious because of the fact that they weren't launching on Steam. They were not going to be launching their full game on Steam. And I was wondering why. Why would they do that? Especially since their goal is for the game to have 50 versus 50 player matches. So you need roughly 100 players for a match, right? So that made me curious about what their plans were. And I looked them up later, and I found out that it's an NFT game. And that their shtick, and this is why they're not doing Steam, is that all the mechs and infantry armor and stuff that you make via blueprints in the game are NFTs that you can trade and sell. That's why they're not doing Steam. They're using NFTs to create what is effectively just a roundabout version of the Steam marketplace. That's what's going on here. And I'm curious? Sort of? The gameplay's fine. The game seems like it's in a decent state. You know, the pre-alpha build looked really good. But you're really relying on an NFT scheme for a game that requires roughly 100 players to function properly? And because of that, you're not launching on Steam because you don't want to use their marketplace? I'm curious but hesitant about that. So, what else? Oh yeah, the Saints Row game was there, that new Saints Row game. By the last day, the booth was completely empty. There was some dude handing out free t-shirts that were Saints Row based, but the actual booth to play the game was completely empty. Right next to it, you had Gungrave, which seems interesting if a bit unpolished. The System Shock remake, which looks amazing, and Goat Simulator 3, which it's Goat Simulator. Oh yeah, Poland also made a special guest appearance at their own little booth of Polish games. Neat little thing. Game Deck is alright. I already have that game. Beyond that, the usuals were there. Bunch of indie games in the back. Yacht Club games showed up. That sort of thing. You had some tournament areas and all that. Got some pro gaming going on right here at PAX, folks. Some competitive pro tournaments. No idea what's going on. Now, the last thing I want to mention that was really of note is the fact that the upper floor was completely different from PAX 2019. Back in PAX 2019, the upper floor and the bottom expo hall were both basically just expo halls for a bunch of video games. Back in 2019, which again was the last PAX that I went to, The upper floor was just more games, more video games, right? Same whole structure, right? Big booths, small booths, all spread out around the area, showing off video games all over the place, right? Just everywhere. But this year, there was none of that. None of that on the upper floor. Instead, the upper floor was entirely tabletop. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just find the difference interesting. The upper floor, there were little pockets of tabletop vendors, so, you know, people selling tabletop games, board games, dice, that sort of thing, right? But then the whole rest of the floor, as you'll see in the footage that is showing up on screen right now, the whole rest of the floor was just tables. Just tables for tournaments and free play. They even had little cones with things like LFG spray painted on them, so you could go set up a table and just wait and see if anyone walking by will stop and just want to play a game with you. It was very interesting, super quiet, super chill. I just find it really interesting because last time that upper floor was nothing but just more video game booths all over the place. So this change, I don't know how to feel about necessarily. It's very interesting. I'm very intrigued to see what happens next year, if that stays or if it sort of reverts back to the way things were. Personally, my theory on it is that a lot of companies are still hesitant on going to these conventions right now because of, again, the thing that I will not directly name. So I'm thinking that they just didn't get enough people wanting to buy space for PAX this year. And so they had to fill the upper floor with something, and so they just filled whatever was left of the upper floor with tables. Just tables to play games. That's my theory, at least. I don't know. That could be completely untrue. They could have just decided that no, the upper floor is just going to be tabletop this time around. We made a mistake. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But yeah, that was really interesting, and that's really all the notable stuff about PAX that I really want to talk about here. Except for also McDonald's decided to show up this year. Yes, I'm not kidding. McDonald's had a giant booth this year, and for some reason, they just had claw machines. I don't know what you got from the claw machines, but they were claw machines. Weird. I don't quite get it. Naturally, when McDonald's shows up, they brought nothing of actual substance. But yeah, that was PAX 2022. All in all, it went very smoothly. It was very quiet. I really liked it. Mind you, I didn't go in any panels. None of the panels really interested me. I just walked around the expo hall and all that. But it went really, really well. I really enjoyed this PAX, and it's sort of motivating me to get back into the convention scene again. So who knows, maybe I'll be going to more of these later next year. So yeah, that was PAX 2022. I don't really have much else to say here, so I will see you all later. Oh yeah, also down the street from the convention center there's a Nike store, and for some reason there was a line outside to get into the Nike store. Like multiple days in a row there was a queue to get into the Nike store. What?